Finally, number 5 for the Gabbai Rishon is giving direction to the ark openers and to the Torah carriers. So when the folks are staged there to open the ark, the honorees are up there. Hopefully they're already up there, or they're coming up. You would quietly and nicely say to them, each of you take a side at the ark, hold the middle, grab it from the middle, and pull outwards. And it's a little heavy, so you may have to pull. Likewise, once the Sifrei Torah are being carried, they're being held, we're getting ready for the procession. Once those people have the Sifrei Torah handed to them, so not when the procession starts, but once they have the Sifrei Torah handed them, you want to get them up in the line, all standing across in one line with the cantor and the rabbi and the ark openers. Direct the ark openers to stand up in that line straight across the bima as well. Let the Torah carrier or carriers, if there's more than one, as there always is on high holidays, because we have a maftir scroll as well, let them know what their route is before they go. Now, we're asking ritual ushers to tell folks what their route is, which Torah they're carrying and what their route is before they come up. But the likelihood that they're going to remember that when they come up and they're now holding the Torah is questionable, so reminding them isn't going to hurt. And likewise, all of these rules, by the way, apply on Shabbat as well. That, let them know which direction they're going, down the side aisle, across the back, up the middle on a Shabbat. When they're taking the Torah out, down the left side, across the back, up the middle, before when we're putting the Torah away on a Shabbat. On high holidays, we have this sort of more circuitous routes. We have maps for you. You can take a look at it. You can help them, kind of give them a general idea of what the route's going to be. We're hoping to have folks along the route that can direct them to make sure they don't get too far lost. The most important thing, though, is that you let them know that they come up the middle aisle and come back to the bima with their respective Sefer Torah. When the Sifrei Torah come back, the first scroll, or the scroll, if there's not more than one, is undressed. The cover is, or the cloth is laid on top of it, so that the Torah itself isn't exposed. And if there's a second Torah, that goes on the stand. Now, if you're facing the ark, Torah number 1 goes on the stand to the right. Torah number 2 goes on the stand to the left. And we're only going to talk about a 1 or 2 Torah day. There are 3 Sefer Torah days, but that's not happened till Hanukkah. Okay, so once more, Gabbai Rishon, Kol Aliyot, primary correction, hold the roller on your side, spot Hagba, direct the ark openers and the Torah carriers. Gabbai Sheni. First job, marking the place for the next reader. We have a little oval thing with a hole in it that you can put right there. Please do not leave the yod in the Torah scroll, holding the place when the Torah is rolled back up. The pointer of the yod, the finger of the yod, can easily scrape off ink from the parchment. And we don't want that to happen, because then the Torah becomes invalid and we have to have a sofer correct it. Even better, if possible, is to ask a Torah reader, as they finish their reading, to stay there and show the next reader where they ended. Almost certainly a Torah reader is going to remember where they left off, so the next Torah reader can be shown. In fact, it's actually Torah reading etiquette to stay there and show the next reader where you left off. So if you can encourage people to do that, great. If they take off right away, or they're nervous or whatever, then mark the place and everything's fine. Second, hold the roller on your side, on the top of the Eitz Chaim on that side. Make sure it stays open. Third responsibility of the Gabbai Sheni, to call out the page number and the verses for the next Aliyah. So the third Aliyah is found on page 357, begins on verse 17. The way we're doing things with the Torah reading now, since really since before the beginning of the summer, is I'm giving a few quick sentences about each Aliyah, So we'll ask you to, they'll call the aliyah. So the Gabbai Rishon is going to call Yamod Shlishi, let's say it's the third aliyah. Gabbai Sheni will say, or I'm sorry, we'll call the aliyah, I'll give my little shtick, and then the Gabbai Sheni will say, the third aliyah begins on page 214 with verse 11, whatever it happens to be. Okay? So call the aliyah, Rabbi does his little shtick, and Gabbai Sheni gives the page number and verses. And finally, oh no, not finally, two more. One is to make sure that the Oleh or the Olah, the person having the aliyah, when they're finished with their blessing after the reading, that they step to your side of the reading table and stay there all the way through the next one. All right, so that's the traffic responsibility for the Gabbai Sheni. If that person starts to wander off or starts to walk away, then as Gabbai Sheni, just kind of put a hand on their shoulder and on their arm and say, "Come and stand by me." And finally, the Gabbai Sheni's responsibility is to reset the reading table after we're done reading. So that means to put the cloth on there, make sure the flames are going up, okay, and to set the little stender there, the little book stand that the cantor uses on top of that. Just between you and me, a lot of times Cantor Roebuck likes to do that himself. Okay. One other important thing for Gabbai'im in general, and that is really an issue of halakha. When we read Torah, we are not only reenacting Mount Sinai, all of Israel, all of the congregation is hearing the words of the Torah, but we're also dealing with an issue of agency. When a person is called for an aliyah, it's actually their religious obligation to read from the Torah. When someone is standing there to read on their behalf, the assumption is that person who's called for the aliyah is assigning the Torah reader as their agent to fulfill their obligation. Okay. If someone else is reading along out loud, essentially, legally, they're also functioning as the agent for this person, but that person who had the aliyah didn't appoint them as their agent. What's more, a single person can't appoint two agents to do the same responsibility for them, to fulfill the same mitzvah for them. In Aramaic, it's called trei kale. You can impress people at cocktail parties by knowing that. Trei kale, which means two voices, and it is expressly prohibited by halakha. So if you are serving as a gabbai and you're following along with the reading, or you're trying to stay a word or two ahead of the reading, for some people, being an auditory learner is important, and they need to hear what it is that they're reading. However, if it's loud enough that anybody can hear it besides you, even not even necessarily make out the words, but they can hear sound, especially if the Torah reader hears it, we're actually up against the problem of halakha. So except for making a correction, the Gabbai'im should remain silent during the actual reading of the Torah. Okay, so once again, reviewing for Gabbai Sheni, mark the place for the next reader or ask the previous reader to show the next reader where they ended. Hold the roller on your side, call the page number and verse numbers. Make sure that the person who has just completed an aliyah comes to your side of the table and reset the table after the last aliyah. One last piece of trivia almost, but very, very important trivia for Gabbai'im. It's not a rare occasion that a Gabbai, Rishon or Sheni, but particularly the Sheni, will also be the Torah reader for one or more aliyot. What we would like a Gabbai to do is to ask the Torah reader before them. If you're a Gabbai and you're going to be reading Torah, let's say you're reading the fourth aliyah, at the end of the third aliyah, or perhaps even before the third aliyah, ask that reader if they will please stand in for you just for the next Aliyah while you read. Two reasons for that. One is we don't have to sort of cast around and figure out who's going to stand in for whom and then get up and sit down. And second, it's easier on Cantor Roebuck, because usually what ends up happening is Cantor Roebuck has to jump up and come in as the Gabbai'im and then go back down again, and he's already got a job. So since a Torah reader is already up there, we assume that they're familiar with Torah readings since they're doing one. We'll ask them to please stand in. If they're not comfortable with it, or if it's someone who is a visitor or a guest and they don't really read Torah that often, or this is not their congregation and they decline, no pressure. Go and bug Cantor Roebuck or come and ask me. I'm more than happy to stand in too. All right. Thank you very much. Once again, a very important job that you're doing for us, and we very, very much appreciate the wonderful work that you're doing in making this spiritual experience of this high holidays so very good and so very smooth and so very enjoyable and meaningful for our congregation.